Aliens are attacking. Alien Isolation, that's right. Probably have a lot of questions, and a few of those questions may be: Darkness, where have you been? Darkness, are you still doing people's requests? Darkness, where the hell is your hat? And the answer to all of those questions is yes. But for now, let's press on into Halloween, because that's what month it is. And by month I mean day, but it's not Halloween today, it's October, which has Halloween in. Listen! We're reviewing a horror game, because it just came out, and I did like a playthrough on Twitch, and people really like that. And I was like, maybe I should just review the game to get back into the swing of things. So here we are. We're back. We're back. We're just back, and you're gonna deal with it. All right? Damn it! People be hating is what's going on. All right? You come in and you're just like, Darkness, I don't like you. That's what you always say, and that hurts my feelings. But it's okay, because I'll get over it. Because I don't fucking need this shit. What I do need is to tell you about Alien Isolation. Alien Isolation is a new Alien game in the Alien franchise, which should have given it away by the title, because I thought that was pretty clear. It is also the first Alien game since Colonial Marines, so no pressure on this one. Because if you recall, I hated Colonial Marines. That game fucking sucked in almost every conceivable way.
Hey guys, welcome to the world of fire!
What do I think of Alien Isolation? Alien Isolation is basically the exact opposite of that. They got a developer that actually knew what the hell they were doing, apparently, and like gave a shit about the franchise and like made a good game. Which I know, I can scarcely believe it myself. They adopted a bit of a different style for this game in the sense that it's not an action game like before. You see, oddly, we've never really had a proper horror Alien game to my knowledge. Most of them have been action-based. Colonial Marines certainly was. The AVP games always were. But now all of a sudden we have this game that's going for straight-up survival horror. And honestly, is more survival horror than most survival horror games that come out nowadays. For a long time, I felt like survival horror is a bit of a dead concept, because most games that call themselves survival horror aren't really survival horror at all. I mean, we used to have the original Resident Evil, and Fatal Frame, and Clock Tower, and Silent Hill, and Alone in the Dark, and all these other games, but all of those sort of, like, either stopped being things at all, or just became needless action games, forgetting what they were originally supposed to be. But here we have Alien Isolation that's taking all those things and is trying to go for another survival horror game, and see, the game takes place, about 15 years after the original movie, and a lot of it is modeled after the original movie. They don't really take too much from Aliens, or God help you, Alien 3 and Resurrection, instead focusing on the original classic, which is fine with me, because that was a pretty good movie, and hey, it started it all, so why not? You take the role of Amanda Ripley, Ellen Ripley's daughter, as she's sort of thrown into the same nightmare that her mother had to deal with, which is a pretty good idea. She becomes stuck on a space station called Sevastopol that's deep into its decommission phase. And of course, there's a frickin' xenomorph on board. We're just gonna frickin' murder you. Repeatedly. But more on that later. The first-person perspective and a lot of the elements in this game actually really remind me of System Shock. Again. Which I really wish that would stop happening. I really just need to make a video that's just reviewing System Shock. And System Shock 2, because every single time I get a game that's a horror game in space, I'm just like, System Shock. And that basically ruined Dead Space for me, which was unfortunate, because honestly, people got really mad at me about that. And I never said Dead Space was a bad game, I just didn't feel like it was very original, because it wasn't, and that drove me nuts. This isn't nearly as bad as that regard. It just takes some elements that I remember from System Shock, you know, like audio logs, and the first-person perspective, and the setting, and it's clear to me that someone on the development team played System Shock and System Shock 2. and really liked those games. They wanted to take the good ideas from those games. There's nothing wrong with using ideas. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. And the plot is basically completely goddamn different from System Shock, so I shouldn't even bring that up. Although there is an AI involved. But listen, just hear me out on this, okay? I'm gonna try to avoid making comparisons to System Shock. I just wanted to bring it up because I was thinking at like in the beginning part of the game, just like a lot of this is kind of like System Shock, and I'm like, fuck again. You know, I wish it would stop happening. But being like System Shock is like never a bad thing. Like, sure, would that make your game unoriginal? Yeah. In the case of Dead Space. Does that make it bad? No, because System Shock was a really good game, so it's like, rip it off. Go crazy. You know? And, again, in this instance, they didn't rip it off nearly as much. See, because System Shock and System Shock 2 are both kind of action games, in a way. There's combat. You don't hide from your enemies, like, ever. You fight them. That's what happens in those games. Here, combat is a very, very questionable action in almost every circumstance. There's only like 1 or 2 times where fighting is basically your only course of action, and the game is set up to do that. Otherwise, you're hiding, and running, and hiding, and screaming, and running, and hiding. It's a stealth game. Pure and simple. And in that regard, it also reminds me of Thief. And it also kind of shows me what they did wrong with Thief, because things about that game didn't occur to me until I played this one. Like, I enjoyed Thief. I did. But, upon recollection, I don't think it's as good as I initially thought. Like, my first playthrough with that game was really fun, and then, like, every consecutive playthrough, and by that I mean 1, I didn't like it at all. And now I played Isolation, which actually does stealth, like, correctly, and I'm like, oh, I see the problem now. Because I do. Because Isolation does a really good job with the stealth. Like, a really good job with the stealth. And it's very immersive in that regard. Like, you feel like you really are Amanda, and you're hiding from everything. And it's just... And you're there. And you're in this situation. Like, you feel like you're a part of this. And that's great. It's really good. Like the immersion in this game is actually outstanding in like every regard. Like, that is one of the best parts about the game. It helps that the game is visually stunning and the sound score is freaking amazing. So everything in that regard is outstanding. Again, gameplay is all about stealth and it's all about avoiding confrontation. There are 3 different main types of enemies. You have the Xenomorph, which is obviously the most dangerous by far. You almost never want to get seen by that. Especially early in the game, because if you get seen by it earlier in the game, you're basically dead. You have to avoid it, period. The humans are a little sketchy, because they can be very bipolar. Some of them are fine with your presence and will let you just stroll by. Some of them, on the other hand, will fucking kill you, and you gotta be careful about that. The AIs are also really skitsy, but that's because they only react to you in certain ways, like... if, you're in an area you're supposed to be in, they'll be, it'll be cool, and everything will be fine. But then if you go in an area you're not supposed to be in, they'll break your frickin' neck, and it's no exaggeration. That's exactly what they will do. Like, they're hardcore. Alright, don't mess with them. But again, like, at the end of the day, you always want to be avoiding things. You always want to be, being very careful, being very stealthy, and it's very, very, very traumatic the whole time. It's a scary fucking game. Because you know damn well if you're seen, you're basically dead. You can't fight. Fighting is almost never an option. And that's one of the scary things about this. It's so traumatizing to know the Xenomorph is literally right next to you. When you're hiding under a table, for example, and you can see its feet just walk by as it's trying to find you. That's frickin' scary. And there were times when I played this game where I was genuinely fearful because I knew it was close, but I didn't know where it was. And if you know anything about me, and we're here for my last review, I mentioned that the one thing you can do to really scare me is put me in the dark with something I cannot see. I hate that, and that is like this entire fucking game. You have any idea how many times the lights are frickin' off in this game, and I can't see that giant-ass thing? Oh my god. I frickin' hate that, and I can't see it unless, like, staring at my motion detector, like, where is it? It's in this vague direction, but I don't know exactly where it is. Is it in the vents? Is it under me? I don't know. Also, pro tip, do not go into the vents with the Xenomorph around. If you're hiding from it, do not go in there. Just don't. Find it somewhere else, because that was a really bad idea. I just want to throw that out there right now. The game also tries really frickin' hard to hinder you. Like, every single time you feel like you're making some kind of level of progress when it comes to escaping this place, something else happens that's gonna make things go bad. Let me put it this way. If you're playing this game and you can think of something that could possibly go wrong with what you're currently doing, that exact thing you just thought of will totally go wrong. Like, that's gonna happen. It will, okay? It's gonna happen. So, I just wanna get that out there so you know that that's what's gonna happen, and you just gotta get used to that, because it's gonna happen right up until the end of the goddamn game. Every single frickin' time you feel like you're safe, you're not. Fun times. Despite the fact the game is stealth-based, though, there are things you can use to try to even the odds. For example, you have things like noisemakers and EMP bombs and stun rods that you can use to fight back against certain things. Some things will work better against other things, like the EMP stuff will only work against androids for obvious reasons. But then you have, like, proper firearms, which I almost never recommend using. Ammo is scarce, and gunfire will attract the alien, so you have to be really careful about where you use that. Only use it when you know the alien isn't around. If you know it's close by, do not discharge your weapon. It will hear you and come find you. And don't even attempt to shoot the thing, because that will not work. It will fucking kill you. It does not care. Let's get that clear, out of the way, alright? Just so you know. The best thing to use against the alien is the flamethrower, by far, because that will scare it off. And it will give you about 20 to 30 seconds breathing room for you to get out of the area you're in, or to finish what you're trying to do. The flamethrower comes into play a lot, especially towards the end of the game. But again, fuel on it, little scarce, so you have to be very conservative about using that thing. There are plenty of times where this game will really stress you out when it comes to conserving your resources. Because there are times where you have to use the flamethrower to get through areas, like straight up. And it will give you enough, technically, to get through, but only just barely enough. So you cannot waste it at all. You have to be really freaking careful with that thing. Never abuse it. If you can hide, almost always hide, rather than just use the flamethrower, because, trust me, it'll work out better for you in the end. Speaking of endings, story-wise, the game is actually really good. I genuinely enjoyed the plot here. It got a little crazy after a while, but hey, it worked, and I liked it. It was good. Overall, I mean, I can't complain. I don't want to tell you much because I don't want to spoil anything, because, you know, survival horror games, they ride off their plots oftentimes, and this is one of those times. Not that the gameplay isn't fun, but I don't want to spoil the plot. Alright, so I didn't want to get into negatives, because I really did like this game, but it does have a couple of problems I need to mention. There's two main ones that really bothered me. One has to do with some of the AI, and the other has to do with the length of the game. Let's talk about the AI first, because it's easier to explain. See, the Xenomorph AI is actually really good. I was told by a friend that he thought the AI was bad in Xenomorph. I don't agree at all. I think he's wrong. Like, so fucking wrong. You wouldn't believe. Xenomorph AI I thought was really good. I mean, you know, it's obviously imperfect, but overall I really liked it because it's unpredictable. There are times where you'll go into an area and you'll die, and then you'll go into the same area, the Xenomorph will be in a completely different spot. It makes decisions differently every time you play it, so it's never the same. There are some scripted events where it will be in specific areas at very specific times that you can predict, but it's not always that way. And in fact, most of the time it's not. And it's very good. Like, it hears things. It comes in. It murders the other humans that were stupid enough to shoot at you. They'll die, and then it'll start looking for you, because it knows you're there, but it doesn't know where you're at, and that's terrifying, and the thing is smart. One of the tips in the game is that hiding is only ever a temporary solution, and it is so true. You can stay in one spot and hide, and you'll be fine for about 5 minutes. It'll find you eventually, guaranteed. That's how good the AI is, and I really like that about the game. The Android AI is also fun, but that's because it's very predictable. You know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to see you, and they're going to slowly walk towards you like they do, because they don't run, and they'll mutter spooky android things, and you'll shoot them in the face a few times until they'll finally go down. That's what's going to happen. Like, the Android AI is very, very, very predictable. They walk in patterns, you know. But that's the way they're supposed to be. So, I'm not going to duck any points. Where the AI gets dumb is with the human AI. Because the human AI is, as I said, humans are very unpredictable as well, but for different reasons. Because some of them, you know, just want to be left alone, and some of them are, you know, so desperate they'll actually shoot you. The thing about this is that some of them will do this thing where you start approaching them, and they'll be like, hey, back up, I don't want any trouble, get out of here, I'm warning you, you know, stuff like that. So, naturally, trying to avoid a fight, you'll probably start backing up. And instead of being like, yeah, you better keep walking, you know, or something like that, you know, instead they'll be like, hey, I thought I told you to back up. And you're like, I'm definitely am doing that. I am doing that exact thing you just said. What the hell? And you'll keep doing it, and they're like, last warning, back up! And at this point I just start getting mad, because I'm like, I'm doing this. I'm doing what you said. I'm backing up. And you're still gonna shoot me. And there have been times where I backed up so far away from these idiots that I'm out the door into the other room, and they're like, that's it, and then they'll start shooting from the other room, and the alien will come in, and they'll all die horribly. And I'm like, well, you're dumb. That's pretty bad. The AI in that regard is pretty frickin' stupid. They need to patch that or something. I don't know why they react that way. I don't know why they don't acknowledge when you're actually backing up. I don't know. All I know is that's a problem. The other big issue I have with the game is length, and that's because the game, after a while, starts dragging on. It's a longer experience than you think, and every time you feel like it's gonna end, it doesn't end. And it just keeps going and going and going. And there's at least one segment of the game that I just felt like didn't need to be there, because at one point, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, not really, but at one point you think you've beaten the alien, and all of a sudden you're dealing with an AI issue. And this part dragged on and on and on and on and on, and I'm just like, oh my god. The beginning of the game is really good, and the very end of the game is really good. There's just this middle part that's just so fucking dull. I was just like, oh my god, why am I doing this? Why is this taking so long? Please, just fucking end. You know, because I don't like fighting androids. The androids were spooky at first and then got really boring really fast. And there's an entire segment that's like nothing but goddamn androids. And I don't feel like dealing with them. I don't. That part was dumb, and it sucked, and that was the worst part of the game. So keeping that in mind when you're playing it, the best advice I can give is that play the first part and have fun. When you get to the part I'm talking about, just push through, because it's worth it. Because the end of the game is so freaking over the top that it's worth it. It's awesome. So yeah. Overall, Alien Isolation is one of the best Alien games I've played, at least in terms of horror. My personal favorite Alien game out of the ones I played, which is only 3 of them, is actually Aliens vs. Predator for the 360 PS3. I really liked that game a lot. Some people bitched about it, but I thought it was really fun. I did. Colonial Marines fucking sucked. And I'm glad to see that the series is kind of back on track now. You have Alien Isolation. It's a good survival horror game. It's a good Alien game. Imperfect, sure, but I'd say it's definitely worth a buy, especially if you're a fan of horror games. And hey, 'tis the season of horror. What else are you gonna play? You gonna play RE6? No, you're not, because that game sucks too. Although I should probably make a note, apparently, not that I've played them, but apparently the last gen version of Alien Isolation, that is 360 and PS3 versions, are, to quote, visually and playably disgusting. So I guess I should probably recommend you get a next-gen version, that is Xbox One PS4 version of Alien Isolation, because it's a very next-gen game. So, with that, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.